Hey everybody, Chris here. So is the decision time coming for Dogecoin, Bitcoin, and the crypto market? We're going to talk about that in this video. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit that little notification bell too. You can be notified when my new videos come out as well as when I do live streams. And looks like the Asian markets dumped crypto overnight a bit. Maybe they're just rotating more into gold and trying to pump the gold price. There seems to be a lot of that going on, but Bitcoin is kind of holding on, and now as we are on a Tuesday, it looks like we may have a recovery back up again as the chop continues since the big liquidation event we had a week and a half ago. But this is kind of messing up a lot of the charts though, and all the patterns on the charts get totally whacked. But we do have some support lines we need to take a look at where there could be a danger zone and we could be going into bear market territory. That's right. Chris is talking about the possibilities of bearish patterns. Let's get into it. Let me show you the charts in the news. I'll show you what I'm looking at. We start here looking at the current Dogecoin price. We're about 19.5 cents, and we had this little pullback overnight, and Bitcoin as well. I mean, look at Bitcoin's pullback. I'll show you what this purple rectangle is in a minute. But this is Bitcoin selling. That's right, selling Bitcoin, most likely going into gold. And we're looking at this downward sloping, what's now a support line was a resistance line. And we'll be taking a look at that in just a minute. ETH is under 4,000 again, right at about 3,900, trying to come back up on a Tuesday morning. Look, overall, again, more longs got liquidated. Over $250 million in long positions wiped out overnight. Again, Asian market makers piling on when there's some selling going on to take out more long leverage, and that cycle continues. If we look at the stock markets, we look at gold, and then we look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin lagging behind, right? Lagging behind Bitcoin. It isn't doing what gold in the stock market is doing. What's going on here? So Colin takes a look at this and says, look, if you offset gold to Bitcoin by like 80 days, there tends to be a bit of a confluence of a pattern here, which means Bitcoin November, December could do this pattern, right? This could be a sign of a breakout on Bitcoin. So that looks good. We like that. Ali says, look, the most important support trend line for Bitcoin is this larger one that goes back to 2023 as Bitcoin has been bouncing off of this as support. So if Bitcoin drops below this, we're doomed, right? Is that the bear market sign? Because I think this is going to kind of go sideways a little bit here. And we're going to see whether that line gets invalidated. Gold reversal ahead. When the market smiles at you, it's getting ready to take your money. And it is kind of a smile. You see a couple eyes, and you see a smile here, and it's just like, okay, I see that, But yeah, we'll be watching what happens with this chart here on what happens next. Bitcoin's entering a pretty interesting time in terms of seasonality. I mean, here we are, right? In the second half of October, what Dan Crypto is now looking at is not the monthly returns, but he's looking at the weekly returns. And the current weekly return is down, but typically we are up. But then it's kind of interesting that we do have a couple of red weeks in the 42nd week, but overall the pattern is green, 43rd, 44th, 45th, 46th weeks here. That's what we've been seeing as we get through the end of October and into and through November. It's generally pretty green. So looking on the weekly time frame here, generally Bitcoin does very well. And Nick says, look, despite all the doom posting on the timeline, Bitcoin is still above $100,000. It's been above $100,000 for over 4 months, right? And Bitcoin, again, great things come to those who hodl. You look at what's happening in terms of days. We got a lot of chop going on, right? You look in months, and yeah, it's kind of evened out. But you look in years, it's up. It's up. That has been the trend. Is this Bitcoin cycle different? Merlin says, look, obviously the first cycle, just huge parabolic. Second cycle, parabolic. Third cycle, still parabolic, but not quite as much. But this cycle, institutional structured bid. It has just been grinding up since the end of 2022. Bitcoin has just been grinding up. No parabolas. There's no parabolas here. This is why I think it's different too. And I don't think we're going to have this giant run up like this. Institutional, yes. ETFs, companies buying for their treasuries, like all of that is just grinding. So every top in history was fueled by emotion. This one is structure. ETF flows redefining the game. The crowd is quiet. The whale's already here. So this is starting to look like we're going to stay up here. There's not going to be a huge pullback, but there's also not going to be this giant parabola up. What about altcoins? Altcoins have been slowly fading downward over the years. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? Bitcoin dominance chugging upwards, altcoins chugging downwards, and I mean the MACD, just when you're zoomed out and you're looking, this is the monthly, right? That doesn't look good. And yeah, you see this falling wedge pattern, and typically there's a breakout and a huge run up. We may not have that. We may not have that. Because look, people need to understand something about altcoins. The market is flooded with useless coins. Each day, many new are added. The alt season narrative, it may not hold true anymore. I simply don't see each and every coin pumping. Market cap would be too inflated. Instead, I see them mostly for trading due to their volatility, right? You get in early when something is moving, and then you get out. Some might be great picks. We'll see. Solana rallied in 2024 because people were buying the memes, right? That was that whole pump.fun thing with Solana. That's why that pumped. And since then, it's just been kind of bouncing around, chopping around pretty much sideways. Hype, right? It pumped because people were using Hyperliquid, but most stuff is just useless. I mean, look at some of these. We go out onto the, onto the daily, and we look at a coin like Avalanche, right? We look at Avalanche and we zoom out and we're like, this thing is just, I mean, here's 2021, right? We're not going to see 2021 prices for Avalanche. Avalanche is at $20. This was $120 up to $140. We're not going to see that. We go to another like Dot, right? Because people ask me about Polkadot, and I'm like, well, Polkadot, what is it going to do, right? I mean, this is where Polkadot was back in 2021. This is a terrible looking chart. Polkadot is not going back up to $44 or $50. It's $3 now for Polkadot, right? There's a lot of altcoins that have these same kind of charts. But if you look at something that is building utility, right, and that is building support, still has a very dedicated community, and is starting to get the eyes more and more of the institutions, ETFs, and treasury companies like BitOrigin and House of Doge, what they're building. I mean, pretty interesting, right? That gives Doge a lot of hope. Doge is in an uptrend. We've been watching this uptrend here. It did slip down below with that whole leverage flush, and we're looking to reset, but this purple box for Doge is going to be the decision box, right? Because we've seen, this bottom line here at 18 cents be alternating support and resistance, and we just tested it again as support. If we drop below, then we're in bearish territory. We can look at this on Bitcoins as well here. In Bitcoin, the bottom of this box is 105. A lot of people say 100,000 is going to be the key bottom, right? But we're still up. Bitcoin is still up. But more recently, we've seen this sort of downward trend, right? the downward trend in Bitcoin. We've moved up above it, came back, retested. We'll see whether we move higher. Most likely, it's going to just chop around sideways a bit more, I think. So pretty interesting. So what about Doge? Well, percent of supply held by top 1% addresses for Doge continues to move upwards. This is an interesting chart. Mostly, this is because of exchanges. Most of the top 1% wallets are exchange wallets. That means slowly people are buying on exchanges and holding Doge on exchanges. That's the retail. Most retail doesn't use cold storage wallets and move coins off, right? They just buy on an exchange and they hold. Whether it's Robinhood, Coinbase, Webull, like all of these, they're just holding on the exchange. So the exchanges, right, have to have all of that Dogecoin to support what's being bought on their platforms. And so you see this slow grind up now, which is huge support for Dogecoin. That's huge support for Dogecoin. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? And BitOrigin, here's what's next as we go all in on Doge. Expanding our Dogecoin treasury, building merchant payment rails and integration tools, launching miner and ecosystem-focused services, driving adoption at scale, powered by Dogecoin for Doge. This is the exact type of thing that's going on. We talked about House of Doge yesterday. What's happening with, their merging with other companies or buying them out, merging, whatever you want to call it, right? That's all in support of Dogecoin going forward. And we're still waiting on Doge OS and what the MyDoge wallet, the next version when it comes out, and all of that, all of those tools being used on the Dogecoin blockchain, but adding this kind of like layer 2 for all of this utility for Doge. It's all building. And that's why the Dogecoin chart looks so much better than like an Avalanche or a Polkadot. But then you've got all the other memes though, right? And Doge still kind of competes against memes. And all of that money that's all going into memes is at the expense of Dogecoin. A lot of it is, I believe. And so Doge does have a challenge there. Trader Allen is like, look, inverse head and shoulders, right? There's a shoulder, there's a head, and then we kind of had a little slower grind up. But could we finish this out, right? Come back up. Kind of a next shoulder, and then what does it do going forward? I'm not a big fan of these kinds of patterns, but some people are. Some people are. But overall, the Dogecoin cycle, are we repeating? And this is how Dogecoin trades right here. We see this many, many times. Dogecoin goes up in these short windows of time. We get the big green candles. Early 2024, late 2024. Could we still have that in late 2025, that next big move up? Because Dogecoin can certainly do that. I don't think Bitcoin is going to do something like this, but Dogecoin can. So that's positive for Doge. Overall, though, people look at these patterns with Bitcoin and they're like, since the lows of, the bottom of the bear market over a certain period of time, there tends to be a topping. The topping of Bitcoin in 2017, the topping of Bitcoin in 2021. And here we are in 2025, and it's like, there's no big run in Bitcoin. That's why people are getting bearish. They're saying this is starting to turn down. We may have already topped at 125,000 for Bitcoin. That top was in, and now we're going to move down because that's what happened in this length of time since the lows of the bear market. Kind of interesting patterns here to look at. So it's decision time, I think, and we're going to see how Bitcoin still moves the market for the most part, but Dogecoin, since the leverage flush, is still kind of chopping around though, once you zoom out. So decision time right here in the middle of this purple box. Which way are we going to go? Let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Bearish or bullish? Or are we just going to continue to chop around? We need the government shutdown to end, right? And we need to get the ETFs out. We need to get like the U.S.-China trade deal thing done. And all these other great things for Dogecoin need to get launched and we get that utility going. Give the video a like if you haven't already. Please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate the support. We'll see you next time.